So I'm the biggest Spider-Man fan, and Into the Spider-Verse was my jam. Whether you saw the newest Spider-Man movie or not, and whether you loved it or not, stick with me just for a minute. In Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the main character was a teenager named Miles Morales, and he has to face this supervillain named Kingpin. Now, Kingpin is a pretty awful guy because he tried to create this alternate universe, but chaos pretty much took over everything. A bunch of new spider people appeared, the city started glitching, monsters showed up, and the world as they knew it was threatened to be destroyed. At the end of the movie, in one of the biggest scenes, Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man, decides to sacrifice himself for the good of everyone in the world. He knew that he was the only one to stop the chaos. And the symbolism is pretty clear. Spider-Man is a light in the darkness, leading terrified people threatened by chaos and danger to safety. Sometimes it feels like our world really does need Spider-Man, doesn't it? There's a lot of chaos and darkness in the world right now. It seems as if there's always something causing disruption and bringing disorder into people's lives. And that chaos is all over the place. In our world, in our communities, in our schools, maybe even our own homes. Let's be real, middle school itself creates chaos. I can remember how chaotic it felt changing classes, finding friends at lunch, losing friends, having a new crush, trying out for new things. Middle school is just hyperspeed chaos. And while some of that can feel kind of exciting, I mean, who doesn't love having a little bit more independence or some new friends? Some of it also feels pretty awful. When rumors spread or best friends no longer talk to you, when social media feels hurtful or you even fail a class, that is not chaos that we want to have around. And for some of us, we're dealing with even more serious chaos and disorder. Maybe something has happened at home and it makes you worry about your safety, or you're concerned about the health of someone you really love, or a parent or your guardian lost their job recently and you're just not sure where your next meal is coming from. That chaos, that can feel like we're drowning in darkness. In the opening verses of Genesis, the Bible's account of how everything was created, it describes darkness covering the earth. And here's what it says. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Now this verse describes the earth as formless and empty. In other words, it was chaos. I think a lot of us either feel like our lives are chaotic or empty, or we know someone who's going through something that makes them feel that way. What if I told you there's something that has the power to bring hope and purpose into whatever situation you're facing? In the very next verse in Genesis, God spoke into the darkness and chaos and emptiness with 4 important words. Then God said, "Let there be light." And there was light, and God saw that the light was good. Then he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. God simply said, "Let there be light," and there was light across the whole earth. And in seeing the light that God had spoken into being, God determined that it was good. In the next part of the creation story in Genesis, God started the process of separating light from darkness. And at this point, you may be wondering, how does Spider-Man and Genesis have anything to do with me and my current situation? Well, let me explain. When God declared, "Let there be light" in the creation story, God didn't just shine a light into the darkness. There was something else that happened that we need to pay attention to. God brought order to chaos. God made things less confusing and disorganized. God made things clear, hopeful, and, well, just full of light. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and stumbled around trying to find your phone or a light switch? You take small, uncertain steps, just kind of reaching out to stop from bumping into things and hurting yourself. That's especially true if you've ever stubbed your toe on a bedpost or chair. But as soon as you turned a light on, suddenly you could see every step in front of you, and you could walk around confidently. Things were no longer dark. Your path was clearer. Order was brought into your chaos. If you were here last week, we discovered some really important truths together. God is light, and you were created in the image of God. This means that God's light is in you, and you were created to shine God's light to the world. God uses you and me to bring light into the darkness and chaos of the world. Through God's love living in us, we can help bring order and peace and light to the people around us. We can help people and care for people who are in need or who are hurting. We can show God's character and display God's love for everything and everyone. And God's light isn't just for others, that light is in you, bringing clarity and order, hope and peace into your own life. God's light in you brings order to chaos. God's light in you shines for all to see, to bring order and hope and love into a dark world. Luke, who interviewed people who did life with Jesus, wrote that Jesus described it this way: if you are filled with light, with no dark corners, then your whole life will be radiant, as though a floodlight were filling you with light. You can be filled with light. No dark corners, a floodlight. That means you can shine brightly in a dark world and bring order to chaos. Now, I want you to think of your world around you, not your friends or family, or even your schoolmates. Think bigger. Think about your community, the state and the country that we live in, and even the whole world. When you think about areas that could use some of God's light to bring some order and clarity to the chaos, what comes to mind? Maybe you think of war or starvation or inequality. Maybe you think of disease or violence or cyberbullying. I get that in middle school it can seem like there may not be a whole lot you can do to shine God's light and bring order to this type of chaos. It can feel like they are way too big or too overwhelming to even think about sometimes. You don't have to take on the responsibility of solving the world's problems, but I do think you can take a small step to let God's light in you shine. And that step is to care. You can ask questions and learn more. Learning more makes us aware and care about the chaos in our world that needs God's light and order. In the next circle, think about people who are closer to you. Now's your time to think about your friends, your teammate, your family members, and your neighbors. Who in your circle could use some of God's light to bring them hope and order and clarity? Does anyone seem distracted? Maybe sad or confused, rushed, full of stress? Do you know about something difficult they're going through in their lives? Keep those people in mind when I ask you this next question. How can you help lighten the burden of someone in your circle? I know a lot of you are already dealing with your own burdens, so this step might feel overwhelming at first. But God doesn't ask us to take on more than we can handle. And carrying someone's burden can be doing something as simple as just showing compassion, a simple acknowledgement or writing an encouragement note, an act of service, or maybe just a hug. That's what it means to carry someone's burdens. That's what it means when we talk about bringing order to chaos. You're letting God's light in you shine in the darkness. A light of hope for all to see. Bright lights, big city. Now, let's move to the smallest inner circle. That circle represents you. I want you to think about your own life, your own challenges, your own areas that could use some light. Ask yourself this question: how do you need to bring order into your own chaos? How can you let God's light shine in the dark areas of your own life? Where can God bring you hope and order? Or maybe there's something you're struggling with that you need to be honest about. Where can you allow God to shine in those areas to help you make wiser choices? Maybe you need to find time to simply rest and take a break from the disorder in your life. Maybe you need to spend time talking to God and with trusted adults. Maybe you need to really be honest about decisions you're making or words you're saying. God already knows what's bringing chaos into your life, so allow God to work in you and shine a light on those areas so you can have order, clarity, hope, and God's love. And if we want to bring order and peace to the chaos, to shine a light into the darkness we see around us, we have to first bring order to our own situation. Allow God to work in you and shine a light on those areas so you can have order, clarity, hope, and God's love. God's light in you brings order to chaos, even your own chaos. So when you head to groups, think about this. How can you allow God's light to bring order into the difficult areas of your own life?